Well, that's a good. That's going to kind of nicely segue into our next panel. It's starting point for the smart home consumer, and it's a panel led by Richard Gunther of Universal Mind. So please welcome our next panel to the stage.
Let me hand that over to one of you guys. All right. Well, I used to think among many people that connected lighting and lighting control was probably the gateway drug to the smart home. But what we're going to talk about today is that maybe, in fact, it's the kitchen. Maybe the kitchen is the way to get smart home technology into many homes who might not otherwise consider it. I'm Richard Gunther. I'm with Universal Mind, a digital consultancy based in Denver. I also host Home On, a show about consumer DIY home automation technology. And I'm joined on the panel today by Kevin Garton, the Chief Marketing Officer of Zonoff, Peter Taylor, the Head of Global Product Management at WeMo, and Jack Suvak, Senior Director of Consumer and Market Insights at Moen. Thank you for joining me, guys. So I think this is going to be a fun conversation. There's a lot in this space going on. And one of the things that I was wondering about is, what is it about the kitchen that provides unique opportunities for introducing consumers to home tech in ways that maybe other spaces in the home don't? And I think, Peter, I'll ask you to start this one off.
Thank you. So for us, the kitchen's one of these fascinating places where people have a lot of problems to solve. Just even at the simple level, my hands and my eyes both might be busy preparing food. And also the place of data to connect shopping, planning, executing, and delivering. And joining all that together is a gigantic opportunity, we think, for technology to solve problems, make life more convenient, more reassuring, or just simpler. And that's why we see the kitchen as an amazing opportunity for the technology of connected home, or IoT.
Okay. Kevin?
Sure. So,
Can
you hear me?
Can you just lend your mic? Peter, can you lend your mic?
Hello. Thank you. Okay, that's better. Thank you. So for us, we try to help companies build smart home technology and introduce the technology throughout the home. The interesting thing, having worked with lots of large brands and different companies across different verticals, for us about the home in general, is that what we've learned is it's very personal, and so there are lots of different use cases and lots of different rooms. The exciting part about the kitchen is above and beyond any room in the home. It's one of the most emotional rooms and one of the most functional rooms in the home. And when you think about, all the other rooms in your house, some of them are more functional, some of them are more emotional, but the kitchen is the place that has kind of an equal part of both function and emotion. And we think it's a great entry point for smart home technology, and we think that the operating system for the home really belongs in the kitchen.
I echo that a little bit. When we start to look at the kitchen and how it's differentiated from some of the other rooms in the home, it tends to be a very task-laden area, right? And a lot of those tasks are transformative. So you're preparing a meal, you're cleaning up, you're having the meal. And when you think about the kitchen, it's actually what makes it a little more unique too, is that there's a couple of rooms in the house where consumers tend to focus their remodeling dollars. So if you buy a home, an existing home, for instance, within the first couple of years, you're looking at discretionary improvements. And a couple of those places that you look are like a kitchen or a bathroom. And guess what? A lot of people get a good return on investment when they remodel a kitchen. So what's interesting is to start to think about how you position smart, connected products with a backdrop of the renovation or of a minor or a major renovation of a kitchen. So I think that's what makes it a little bit more unique too. The consumer's geared to understand that that's a place where they want to spend, and that's a place where they can get a return on their investment down the road.
That makes a lot of sense. Now, one of the things that I think is also interesting is that the technology that you use in the kitchen is a little bit different than the rest of your house. The cooking technology that we have, the appliances that we have. In an earlier panel, we were talking about the life cycle of appliances. And what kind of challenges do you think that gives you as service providers and product manufacturers as you're looking to provide services that are going to live as long as these types of technology, these cooking technologies that are in kitchens today? It's like they were saying earlier, it's like an 8 to 10 year life cycle. Realistically, my refrigerator is 30 years old. I'm praying that it doesn't die on me. Let me start with you, Jack.
I think part of the challenge with that is, indeed, like a product like a faucet is a durable, right? Our tagline is buy it for looks, buy it for life. And life to a consumer means potentially a long time, right? Depending on how you want to measure that. But part of the challenge is to how do we bring new features to the market that make it seem like it's something that they absolutely have to have, right? I think that's what kind of gets them going. We just did some research recently with first-time faucet buyers, and what was interesting with them is that many of them were younger, because we're starting to see a lot more millennials enter into the marketplace. And for many of them, they're like, "Yep, I'm buying it, and maybe in 5 years, I'm going to buy another one." The need to buy the product before its obsolescence with that younger generation is occurring more frequently. We're seeing that. So it's kind of, in a way, shortening some of the life cycles of the product.
I would agree with that with faucets. I think if you're making refrigerators, you might be more concerned about the life cycle. But yeah, I think that does make a lot of sense. And many people might argue that we have Nest to thank for that disposable way of thinking of products that otherwise might have lasted in your home for 30, 40 years. Peter?
I think Nest is a great example. Having a fundamental reason to change replacement cycles and a technology like connectivity could and should be able to do that if we can identify real benefit use cases. So we've got products across 10 different verticals in the connected home space, and in each of them we learn that a remote control isn't sufficient. Sorry, I think the mic's cutting out, but can I switch? The remote control is not a sufficient value add to any appliance anywhere in smart, right? People need more benefit than just a remote control. And so we think that category by category or appliance type by appliance type, innovation hopefully drives a sufficient punch you in the face benefit to want to replace your 30-year-old fridge, because you don't have a need to do that today. The most connected, most amazing fridge today hasn't forced you to part with your beloved 30-year-old fridge. But I hope and I truly believe that data, that user experience, and that innovation can dramatically shorten these cycles. I don't think it's going to come from integrating lots of things together. I don't think consumers are there yet. I think it will just come from, with Nest, they used art and visual design to disrupt the space quite a lot. Or it will come from just making my life easier, more convenient, more healthy, safer for my family. And those kind of really simple, benefit-driven purchases, I think, will disrupt the replacement cycles.
Okay, I'm going to ask you to figuratively and literally pass your microphone to Kevin.
Thank you. So one thing is I would submit that we're already using a lot of smart technology in the kitchen already. Some of it is not specifically related to the core activities, cooking, eating, meal prep, but lighting, water sensors to detect leaks, entertainment, control systems. So there's already a lot of smart technology in the kitchen being used and being used by families. So I think we're already starting to do that. I think from a life cycle perspective, I think if there is great innovation, it usually serves as a catalyst to replace products. So the TV market's a good example. 15 years ago, flat screen TVs cost $10,000, and who would ever pay $10,000 for a flat screen TV, and now they're $500. So I think with innovation, with volume, with efficiencies, that replacement cycle is going to increase, and it's going to become faster than 10 years. We're just on the very early stage of it, so we really see lots of innovation just being the catalyst to drive that change.
That makes sense. Let's go back to Peter. You were talking about the different spaces where you work. There in the kitchen, we were talking about how everything happens in the kitchen. You're cooking, you're working, you're eating, you're entertaining. Someone said on Twitter as I was up here, ask anybody who goes to a party, it all happens in the kitchen. So there are all these use cases and things that you need to think of. And then there are different types of kitchen users or archetypes that you want to consider. The cook, the family and the kids, the guests, maybe the young couple that just lives alone in the kitchen. Are there, of all of that, are there specific segments that are really exciting you right now that you think are really hot and interesting for you to target with your products?
Absolutely, and it only becomes instructive when you look at the space if you do dissect the audience quite a lot. We all know there's quite a few people, and probably many of them in this room, who are excited by the car and the washing machine and the oven and the lights all working together. But we know that 90% of this country haven't got connected home yet, and if we just got one device into that home, that would be success for the technology. I'm not going to call IoT a category or a market, but the technology of IoT. So when you look at the kitchen, those early adopters, if you like, will play with whatever they can and string things together and have fun doing it, and we love that because we learn from that. And so for us, that's an innovation engine to see what's apparently attractive and what's sticky, what has sticky value and remains a persistent habit of value from technology. The people that we're focused on, partly because of our channel distribution, is the mass market who aren't interested in tech, but are interested in solving problems. And if they have a specific enough problem that we can understand, focus on, and deliver on, then for $50 or $40 or even $30, we can market very, very specifically the benefit of the solution to that problem that we can provide. And it's taking away the category of connected home or smart kitchen or Wi-Fi controlled things or things you can control from your app and saying, hey, we can just reassure you that you didn't forget to turn your oven off. And that sounds like a tiny, tiny thing. But
I need that.
But there are people that can resonate with the problem of, hey, I left my hair straighteners on, or hey, I leave the iron, or hey, I leave the oven on. That right now, we've got 1.5 million devices in the field. We see just the simple feature of checking, did he remember, did she remember, did the kids forget, did I do that, as being a significant benefit that we can sell a simple product in the kitchen. So we focus on the mass market with a simple problem that we can simply solve.
How many weekend drives are paused by someone saying, did we turn the stove off?
And we hear that time and time and time again. And as product managers and engineers, we're like, wow, that's the dumbest thing. Like, that's not even controlling it. And we thought, when we started our business 4 years ago, we thought that control would be the big thing. It's not even control. It's just checking and getting that reassurance. Like, oh, that's okay. Everything in my house is fine. And that was like a smack in the face for us of, duh. Of course that resonates with the masses.
Interesting. Kevin?
I think what we're most excited about is really we believe the statement, the kitchen's the center of the home, is mostly true for families. It's true for lots of the other archetypes, but mostly true for families. And from an adoption of this technology in the home, we think that focusing on families is important because it can really help run and automate those mundane tasks that you kind of have to go through every day that you don't really want to. The great example of remind me that I didn't do something, right? There's all those different solution types, but we're most excited about particularly the kitchen area, about being the operating system or being the operating center for the family, and then really focus on families. It's where you start your day most often, It's where you most often end your day to some level. It's where you do homework. It's where you gather as a family, where you have family meetings. So we're very excited about kind of really developing solutions around the family.
What I love about hearing that is that I feel as if that's the hardest nut to crack. From an automation and control perspective, that's the one with the most variables. So I'm glad to hear there are people who are really focused on that. Jack?
We tend to look at a couple of ways. The kitchen being, with so much activity revolving around food, we think it's important to look at the cooking motivations of people. So we've kind of segmented that out a little bit, from the creative cook who doesn't use a recipe and chooses not to and just experiments a lot, to the family cook who really sees themselves as a caregiver that has to prepare the meals for everyone in the household, and they enjoy doing that, to the disinterested cook. And there's probably a few of us out here today, right? Don't want to cook, it's not worth my time and effort, and there you go. And I'll go out and I'll get takeout food, or I'll buy prepackaged and I'll assemble it at home, right? All of them have different needs and different wants that they're trying to accomplish. I think what you have to do then is you kind of have to intersect that with what's the composition of the home. Is it a multi-generational household? Is it young families, older families? In those cases, those kitchens can get pretty messy. Or is it a single-person household, which in the U.S., we have more single-family households today than in the history of our country, right? But they are doing things with food as well. So it's at the intersection of that household composition and the cooking motivation that we really are trying to learn more about the needs and the wants and desires, and how we can leverage that going forward into products that really meet those needs.
Okay, you have a response?
I was just going to build on that. If we think about the different types of family and how they approach cooking, I want it most convenient or most healthy or best eat. A thought to plant in the minds of the collective here: who is the right company to draw together all of the pieces from planning, inspiration, planning, shopping, delivering, and clearing up afterwards, an experience for the person who is the feed me as fast as I can get food, or a person who's looking for the experience of get me the healthiest experience you can, because that requires the grocery store, the food provider, the appliance manufacturer, the people putting music into the kitchen, the people lighting the kitchen, the people with the washing machine, the people building the cabinets. They could all work together to deliver for the person type of, more often than not, I'm just a convenience guy, or more often than not, I'm a healthy guy. And of course, everyone's not the same mentality 7 days of the week, but we would love it if there was a aggregator of the experience who could bring together a value proposition where oven manufacturers, food providers, grocery stores, delivery companies could all work together to help someone. Like Blue Apron's starting to make that bit of progress in providing some service play, but we think there's a much broader opportunity there, and the whole backbone of it is actually the data.
Well, I think that it very likely needs to be a collaboration. I'm not convinced that there is a company where that belongs. I think it needs to be a cooperative effort. And as we know with the smart home alone, there are so many different standards and protocols and everything else. We're going to encounter those problems in the kitchen too. We're not going to be able to avoid that necessarily, but hopefully we can learn from the problems that we've experienced so far and start with the air of an intent of cooperation and collaboration. Kevin, let me ask a question for you specifically. I've visited Zonoff's, I guess I would call it a test bed or demo space, where you have an apartment space created that demonstrates all of the different products and product types that your system and services can control and enable. And smack dab in the center of that physical space is the kitchen, even though none of the products in there are specific to a kitchen. Was that intentful, or did that just kind of happen?
As most good things in life, it's part serendipitous and part purposeful. So we're an organization of 90% plus of the people in our company are engineers. So they're building the software, the capability to deliver the functionality. but we want them to talk about it in terms of the consumer experience. So we don't sell to consumers, we don't interact with consumers, we sell to businesses that then in turn sell to consumers, but we want everybody in the company to know how it works, what the consumer experience is, and we all use the technology in our own homes for the most part. So we built in our office a house with all the different rooms to demonstrate the technology and the capability. And what we, and I wouldn't even say it's teaching, they did it naturally, because our engineers often present at different events, but they will walk through and tell the stories about how to use the products and the capability in the home. And one of our propositions is we want to try to create this interoperability so the devices can talk to each other, so the brands, the consumers don't have to worry about whether it's a Zigbee or Z-Wave or a Bluetooth. It's all that technology should be in the background. And so what we did is basically create an environment where all the devices are connected, where they're talking to each other, and you can set up these modes. So you might have a morning mode, as an example, or a good night mode, or whatever, I'm leaving the house mode. And what became the serendipitous part was the kitchen became kind of the center of all of that activity. So when we started writing scripts for the demo area, it tended to start with the morning mode, which happened in the kitchen, and the lights went on and the shades went up, and the alarm system was disarmed, et cetera. So part of it was, again, kind of just building this house and where things naturally occur, but part of it was really helping the people in our company understand how to talk about it and how to describe it and how to explain it, and they just naturally started in the kitchen because that's the center of their life. That's our own little internal research. We found that of the employees that microcosm of that sample size is that's where they start their lives, and that's where they were most comfortable explaining the technology.
I like that. That makes a lot of sense. Now, Jack, your company offers the motion sense faucets, and we've talked a bit about these in the past, where this isn't specifically a digital play, but certainly a key part of a smart kitchen. If you think about it, it handles convenience and sanitation and ecological benefits, all the types of things that you can have from a device like that. I take that and I think, wow, if this were connected, what could we do with this if this were connected? And so the question that I have to you is, as a company, how do you decide where to take these products? How are you determining what's going to resonate with your customers?
For us, a lot of it starts at the needs level and understanding the need states of the users. It's about watching, listening, learning, and then translating what we've learned into, we believe, meaningful and relevant features that are beneficial to the end user. So something like Motion Sense, and for those of you that don't know it, Motion Sense is a kitchen faucet. It has kind of like a big gooseneck spout to it, and it has sensors in it. So you can, without touching it, without touching any element of it, as you bring your hands closer, you activate a sensor to turn it on, and your hands come away and it turns off.
Now, you know what the first thing is that I think of when you're describing that?
Yes.
The airport bathroom.
Right, absolutely.
That doesn't work.
And absolutely right. And as we were developing that product, we did every bit of 15 to 18 pieces of research to bring it to the market. But before we even went with step one, we were contemplating how much baggage is there from when any of us go into into a public restroom and we try to act, and then you move on to the next one to try to activate it, right? How much baggage is there? Can we really make this work? And what we found as we did some of the early research is people absolutely want it to be hands-free. It just has to be dependable and reliable, that every time I use it, it's there for me. So, with that product, we spent time in doing ethnography, understanding usage with people. We did user design research. We actually built out hierarchy of needs, did problem detection type of work, and ultimately we said we've got this thing at the right place. And we even built in technology, another sensor on the top of it, so that you can wave your hand to turn it on and it stays on, and wave your hand back over it to turn it off, right? So for us, it's really about digging deeply to understand what those needs are, and then quickly prototyping things. I kind of call it serious play. You got to get to a prototype of what this thing needs to be very quickly. And what that helps to do is it helps to get a greater buy-in throughout the organization because they can understand, they can see it. Even though if it's rudimentary, they can begin to see these things and it builds more momentum all the way up through the leadership.
Yeah, okay. Now, Peter, WeMo has been powering devices in the kitchen for the last 2 years, maybe more, I don't know. And I have to imagine that over the past couple of years, you've had a lot of learnings from that experience. How are you taking that into new product development and new product partnerships that you're approaching?
Yeah, so I think 3 years ago, we just had a plug and someone put a crock pot into it and said, this is cool, I can turn my crock pot off. But it's only on and off. Make it do more. And so we worked with the Garton crew and gave you temperature control, which is a little more. And we still find the consumer asking for more. The consumer expectations around the word smart are gigantic. People like Apple added $750 worth of technology in a phone in your pocket and called it a smartphone. And so your expectations around the word smart are extremely high. It doesn't mean there aren't benefits for things that aren't as smart as an iPhone or the latest Samsung phone. So some of the learnings we brought out of it are, hey, just give the consumer a really clear description of the benefit that they're considering when they're looking at the good, better, best connected lineup. And make sure they can see the connected option when they're shopping for a coffee machine or a crockpot. And give them the chance to make a choice based on the affordances, the benefits, the features of connectivity without needing to call it connectivity. And maybe, and this may be a really scary concept, don't even use the word smart. Because maybe the word smart is a real challenge to keep up with if you consider that you have to add several $100s worth of technology to a phone to make it a fully featured smartphone. There aren't going to be many crockpots selling at $750. And so we're very cognizant of the expectation of the word smart, and we're very cognizant of trying to help people discover connected products as they're shopping for other things, and don't worry about it's connected, it just has a new feature that could be really helpful and could solve a problem. And so if you like focusing on the minute, very focused benefit of connectivity. And that was a painful learning curve because we thought, hey, connected home and smart was like going to sell everything. Yep. And unfortunately, when you put that word on things, it doesn't actually sell it. It sometimes just sets up your consumers for a mismatch of expectations and delivery.
Right.
Particularly as we went through learning curves of quality of experience and learning curves of do people really want things to integrate or not. I don't know if that answers your question. But
yep. No, it's good. So we have about 3 minutes. So I'm going to ask each of you to weigh in 45 to 60 seconds. How do we do this in a way that we ensure that the technology is appealing to the target consumers in the kitchen, which may not necessarily be the most tech-savvy people in the home, because it's now everyone. So what types of things can we do to ensure that we're not scaring people away with this technology? Kevin?
Well, first of all, great technology should operate in the background, and the consumer shouldn't have to worry about what technology is being used and how it's being applied. It should all be driven around achieving a task, solving a problem, achieving a goal. And I think if we can build the technology that actually enables that, and I don't think we're there yet, quite frankly. I think there's still too many standards. There's still too many people trying to control certain aspects of it. It's a big ecosystem. Lots of people can play in the ecosystem, but I think it's really should be focused on, not focused on the technology, but focused on achieving a task and solving a problem. And once we're there, which I think there's other examples, iPhones or smartphones, they were focused on being more efficient, and how do I be more efficient, and how do I do multiple things at once. I think the more that we're able to do that, the better we'll accelerate adoption.
Okay. Peter?
So we hope the standards battle goes away, we hope the platforms conversation goes away, and we hope that the pillars of conversation start to be around benefit or around kitchen type. Are you a chaotic kitchen? Are you an organized kitchen? Are you a food-first kitchen? And we hope that the space starts to realize that connected as a system and integration isn't necessary yet. There's loads of benefit in just delivering the world's best coffee through an amazing coffee experience that's hassle-free, worry-free, and gives you a better coffee experience. And depending what user type you are, buy the right product to suit your needs.
Okay.
So simplify it down, make it about a use case and a product, and get one into the 90% of homes that haven't got one connected device yet.
All right, Jack, you have the final word.
I still think there's an awareness issue with a lot of the products, awareness and familiarity. So a lot of consumers, I mean, most of us in the room are probably more tech savvy to begin with, but there's it's still a portion or a good portion of the audience out there that is more disinterested. They're still trying to figure out, is this worth my effort in terms of what I'm going to pay for it, in terms of having to install it, and in terms of my usability of it. So I think there's some hurdles there that have to be overcome in order to get there and make a really bigger impact with the consumer in the long run.
All right, thank you all very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Oh!